Hey friends, and welcome to Mom Talk Maryland. I'm your host, Claire Duarte, founder of the Columbia Mom, and this is your spot for real conversations, local love, and a whole lot of community. Whether you're folding laundry, running errands, or hiding in your car for some peace and quiet, let's dive in. I'm so happy to have you back. We have Beth Snow of Brain Balance. You know how much I love you and Brain Balance, and if you've been following along our journey, you know about Grant, which we'll kind of share a little bit of an update today. But to give us just a quick little kind of rebrief, if you may, Beth Snow is the director of Brain Balance here in Columbia, Maryland. Can you tell us just real quick a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the program again?
Yes, so I'm a lifelong educator and have been in the space of neurodiverse individuals for a while. And we have brought Brain Balance to this area as a resource and a service that helps neurodiverse individuals and really anyone with brain health. So it's a multimodal approach that's integrative, non-medical, and we use all different modalities to help with focus and attention and just, regular life, managing life, and just being your best self.
I love it. And Grant started back in July. My son is 5 years old. He's started kindergarten this year, has a history of speech delay, developmental delay, which we all know is kind of a big catch-all for a lot of things. Not heavily prescriptive in meaning that it's going to turn into anything, But anyways, that's just what he was diagnosed with at 2.5 to make him eligible for further services within the county. Did the county rec program, finished pre-K in the county last year, and is started kindergarten this year.
Yes.
And, again, if you've been following along with Grant's journey, you know that last year specifically was a really tough year for us. We had to change schools, and that's where we obviously, like I said, we've been linked with the county doing all these services and supports before, including even infants and toddlers from when he was literally a baby. But last year we did private speech therapy, occupational therapy, pelvic floor therapy. We were like gung ho and like I know the county's doing this, but I was like, screw it, like we're just gonna do all the things.
Yeah.
And honestly, meeting you has literally been like the biggest blessing for our family before Grant. So fast forward, let's talk the meat and potatoes today. We want to give you a Grant update, but then we hinted at this a little bit on the last podcast, but also mainly because I'm selfishly interested. I'm like, how can you help fix my brain?
Yeah.
So that's what the goal of what we want to talk about today is, not just all things brain balance, which I wanted to kind of set the stage for that, but to talk about some more things that we can do, whether you're a parent or not, but we'll talk about the adult focus and then how we can kind of keep supporting our kids at home.
Love it.
Okay, before we jump into that, Grant update.
Yes.
So, and again, we're not going to sit here and like go through everything because there's just so much, and like you and I've talked about this too when I've been sending reports to the school. It's like, it's not really, unless you come inside, it's kind of like you need to like come in to really understand the data, which is fantastic. The data is incredible, but it's hard to kind of go piece by piece.
Yes.
But so that being said, we had our 2-month update, which is funny because soon enough we'll be coming up on the 3-month update. And I was really amazed. Again, to put this in like the simplest of terms for everyone listening. Really, I mean, I knew that he's been making a lot of progress, but when you showed me the data, I was really like, wowed. I was like, holy cow, he's making even more progress than I realized. Mm-hmm. And I still struggle with this because I'm constantly talking about brain balance with, obviously to my audience, obviously to friends and family, family who's definitely noticing, obviously, in our close circle, everyone's kind of amazed. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing with Grant, to kind of like also set the stage, if you're new to hearing about my son, Grant, even if you met Grant like a year or two ago, yes, I think you would notice difference, but you would notice difference in any child of this age, just simply growing. He's, what I like to say, the perfect example of a kid that's going to fall through the cracks because his challenges aren't severe enough that are visibly diagnosable, and he's compliant enough. Like, he's not disruptive enough to be like sent to the office and things like that. So anyways, perfect example of the kid that's going to fall through the cracks without proper
Definitely, yes.
support. And, you know, I think the county does wonderful things. I don't think even just the simple IEP was going to be enough to help support him to the level that he really needed to be at. And that's the case for a lot of students. That's a different discussion.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's just the way it's sort of set up. So, anyways, he's in the recent years, he's made a lot of progress in the speech delay category specifically. Where the rubber really hit the road for us last year was the language, what do you call it? Retrieval and processing was... Like, the language was there. Like, we have the language. Like, for the longest time, we were like, we don't have language. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
We have language, and the language obviously just continues to grow. And I think he's completely on level with all of that. It was retrieval and processing, which was almost excruciatingly hard.
Yeah.
And was very challenging kind of across the board, no matter what environment he was in last year. So that's an area that's just, I've seen, like, I think that's just where I'm like, the cognition. I was just saying to you this morning, I was like, it's so hard for me to verbalize what I see as the changes, even in the last, like, 4 to 6 weeks, because to me, they seem small, but they're not. And even outsiders looking in, I think it can seem so small and minute, but so it's like, I have a hard time verbalizing. So, like, the example I was giving to you is like, we were reading a book the other day, and he said, and this is the same book that we've been reading for weeks, you know, because that's how these kids are. And he said, Mom, that's a trapezoid. And I was like, I barely know what a trapezoid is, you know? He tells me that's a trapezoid. And then he said something to me, he's like, Mom, furious means, like, really mad. And first of all, like, I didn't, like, have, like, a blowout at my kid, which it's also fine if I did, but I'm just, like, it wasn't coming from, like, a personal explosion. Clearly, like, you know, like, you knew about that word. And the other day he was just sitting there humming the months of the year. And to your point, too, you said, like, when he walked in program the other day, he just, without prompting, talked about his day, which has been an immense trigger point in our family, because that goes right to the retrieval process that we're talking about and the processing. So anyways, that's, like, a little bit, a very smallish way for me to say, because there's so much happening internally. Yeah.
It's like crazy. An explosion of development.
It's such a massive explosion.
Yes. So, I mean, part of that is what we're doing at Brain Balance is working on developmental brain function. So we're giving opportunity for the brain to be more connected. And that starts with sort of the foundation, which is primitive reflexes, and then being in your body more, which is core and sensory processing. And then we work on the visual system. So if you think of like a pyramid or a triangle, we're starting at the base so that all of those things at the top can come online, and that's cognition, communication, processing, right? But we have to build the house before we paint it. So that's kind of what you're seeing with Grant is the sort of the work that we've put in, and while there's not direct instruction, he's able to be available for learning. So when he's at school, he's picking up what they're teaching him. And it's not, like you said, he could be falling through the cracks because he is behaved, he looks like he's paying attention, like all of those things. He's compliant. Correct. And he is, and he's putting forth effort, right? But now it's like he's absorbing what is being taught. He's
fully available. Like, one of the biggest challenges we had last year was, granted, it was a good adaptation for him, and an adaptation that he needed, because other kids of that age with more severe challenges would not be able to do that as well. But one of his coping mechanisms was that he learned how to pick up social cues, which is fantastic, is a great skill. It's necessary. But so that, you know, there was a couple things that were happening in the classroom. He would sit there and the teacher would be giving instruction, and he'd be like looking around, and so the teacher's like having a hard time figuring out, is he unfocused? What's he doing? And like, oh, we all know he struggles with, you know, multi-step direction. So if he's not paying attention, oh crap, I need to double down and help him. So then they would move him forward to make sure that he's really paying attention. But what he was actually doing is he's scanning the room.
Yes.
He's scanning the room, and he was checking his peers. Because I remember, I'll never forget the example of like, because when his little buddy, his best friend and the school that he was at, the teacher early in the year, all the girls stand up, and Grant stood up, and his friend said, "No, you're a boy. Sit down."
Aww. Yeah, because he was trying to pick it up.
Yeah, so that was like a little, I don't know that he was actually embarrassed. I mean, it's very possible. But of like those, like he has learned that he needs to pay attention to his peers. Again, great life skill, very important. But obviously that made it very challenging in the classroom. Obviously for his educators who were trying to help him, you know, and they quickly recognized and realized that too. Yeah. But, you know, then once they realized they moved him up, then he was struggling even more because he's struggling with the processing bit. So now you're putting him right in front of the person, and he's like, this is 10 times harder for me now.
Yes. And I will say, like, I've noticed, like, since my time with him, that he, like, tunes in to whoever's working with him in the moment, and there's a lot going around him. Yeah. And so I think in the beginning he was scanning, and he was, like, trying to figure out what to do. But now he's self-directing. So he's able to practice telling himself what to do. So you need to be able to do that in the classroom. Yes. And you also need to be able to take cues. Yeah. So it's dynamic. Right. And so we're practicing that so that when he's in the classroom, he is more available. He can pick up on cues, but he can also tell himself what to do.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah. And there was another cute thing this weekend. My husband's getting ready to take him to a birthday party from a kid from school, which he's been talking about actually for weeks. And it's a newer kid that, you know, we haven't met yet, but he's like, you know, been saying his name, like, oh, his birthday party, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Which, by the way, like, up until now, he's never talked about kids in class. Ever. Like voluntarily, whether we were prompting him, anything. So that's another huge thing. Anyways, so my husband laid out the birthday card. I think my husband did prompt him, being like, hey, like, come sign, which, again, that's also been a massive pain point because fine motor deficits, this whole thing. He, and even at the start of the year, of the school year, he was still struggling. I mean, he's still struggling with some of the fine motor stuff. Yeah. But when we would like ask him to sign cards and birthday cards, whether it's friends or family, he'd always push back. But so anyways, my husband prompted him to, like, hey, come sign the card. And I think my husband already wrote, like, dear so-and-so, and then just said, like, you know, so Grant wrote his name correctly, because I told you he's had some issues with the letters and things like that. And then without prompting, wrote the kid's name. I mean, obviously, like, my husband had already wrote it, but, like, rewrote it right underneath. Nice. Like, without prompting. And I was like, that's so cute. Like, not only was he amenable to accepting the prompt of, hey, come write your name, like, he received it, accepted it, and did it, which we know that's like 80,000 steps actually within that. Yeah, and no shutdown. No shutdown, no complaining. But that's actually, this is where it's like you and I could nerd out and probably spend 45 minutes just talking about that, of just like, I could almost cry because I'm like, he didn't fight it because he knows that he actually was confident and able to do that. Yeah. Whereas I know that has been I know it's not easy for him yet, but I mean, I will amend the teacher and what they're doing right now, because they've been doing like heavy name practice. Like, we're getting tons of papers. I know. And
repetition. I mean, you have to.
Yes, he's getting a lot of that. We're getting like stacks and stacks. And obviously they're doing like letter tracing, things like that too. So that's definitely helping, I think. So it's like the reinforcement there too. But anyway, so many cool things. I mean, it's just, I feel the amount of relief that I have, that I feel like, to see him flourish so early in the beginning of the year, that I'm like, not that it's like, you know, our work is never done, but I'm like, I think for any other parents that have a child, especially of this age, like, I do feel a massive sense of relief of like, okay, like, you know, he still may need some other additional support throughout his life, which I don't care about it, but it's like the fact that we have hit this critical time period to help like catch his brain up is just what I'm so excited about.
That's amazing.
So
I'm so happy.
I know.
It's so cool to watch, you know.
Yes, I know. So we're so happy. We're so proud of our Bubs, and he's still our sweet big love bug. You know, and the best part about all of this too is that I think the thing that my husband and I notice as well is that he does have more language around his big emotion. Granted, that's also being reinforced in the classroom. They do a lot of social emotional labeling and talking, but he's got the cognitive patience and ability. I know that I feel like probably in your industry this I know in speech and language they hate the phrase use your words, but I don't really know another, but which I have removed, but recently I've been trying to bring it back because I'm using it as a challenge for him because he has more capability for that. You know what I mean? Because he actually does have the language and he has more of that cognitive ability that I'm okay, instead of you fussing, hey, can you use your words? And that's giving him the ability to, and then he's actually able to do that. Yeah.
And also he's in his body more, right? So he's not as, he feels more grounded, which is some of the stuff we'll talk about today too, right? Being able to really sort of tune in to what the physical signs are, what's the language around it, and also who can support me.
Right.
So that's all going together. But if you're not in your body, even as adults, it's difficult. We're neck up, and then everything gets a little overwhelmed. So imagine if they're a small person trying to do that.
I know.
So the more they can be in their body and connected, then the better the language will happen. It's all connected.
For real.
Yeah.
So that's the perfect segue. Okay, sorry. I know we could, like I said, we could totally just talk about Grant forever. But all right. So that's what I was selfishly wanting to talk about. Is okay, now that we fixed Grant, let's fix me. That's my long game.
I love that. Yeah.
So
listen, it's all happening.
Right? Okay. I mean, obviously, anyone that knows me knows that I have a social media based business. I know that one of my biggest challenges in life is, and probably for millennial parents in general, is our phone addiction, which is entirely a separate issue. Yeah. But I do find that I struggle, with. I've not been formally diagnosed with ADD as an adult, but it's hard to decipher between what's ADD versus what's just the culture that we live in with we're being flung so many stimuli at the same time, and parenting as a mom we are juggling so many things, so oftentimes I do feel very short-circuited. And I do take medication supplement to help support me. I've been taking it for 4 or 5 years, and that's definitely something that, in my tool belt that helps me as an adult.
Yeah, sure.
But outside of that, I want to talk, what do you see as, when helping parents, helping individuals, what can we do to kind of try to keep our own brains a little bit more healthy and alert?
Yes, so good question. Brain health is having its day right now.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, it was about heart health, right? Exercise, nutrition, cardiac health, right? Yeah. But now brain health is at the forefront.
Yep.
One of those reasons is because of the nature of our society and our world is literally circuited, right? There's just all this technology around us, which in some ways help us be connected.
Yep.
And that's, amazing. But at the same time, it is literally rewiring our brain.
Yeah.
It's making focus and attention harder. It's impulsivity is increased.
Yep.
And literally, again, being in your body is more challenging. So we already have that going on. Now, additionally, being able to take care of the brain as far as hydration and nutrition so that we can think straight is important too. So I feel like for parents, obviously, taking care of your brain is throughout the day.
Yeah.
So being able to have decompression time.
Yeah.
So we encourage brain breaks for kids, but are we doing that?
Right.
And is that involving the phone or a sort of an outlet that is maybe not the best thing for us over the course of a day? Now, what you're doing is so cool because you're channeling your energy and your attention to help other people, and it's fast-paced, right? And it's in the moment, and it's connection.
Yeah.
And as adults, we figure out ways that our brains work to be successful.
Yeah.
And you can see this in how people, choose their jobs, how they have their social life, and all of that is what we figure out. But we also need to figure out how we're giving back to ourselves. And part of that, again, is just understanding how our brain works. Like, you understand how your brain works and you're channeling it. And then on the side of that is like, how do I give back? How do I keep my brain healthy?
Yeah.
And like, for some people, that's reading. Or it's literally sitting in silence, or for me is yoga and meditation. That I have to try to fit in. To keep going, keep this train going. So I think as a parent, one, understanding how your brain works, and two, understanding how to keep it healthy. And that looks different for everybody, as you know. Each brain is a gift to unwrap. So for us, we need to understand that. And a lot of times it happens later in life. When we are overwhelmed, we are managing a family, we are managing a career. And then additionally, like, we want longevity. Like, we want to be able to be healthy when we're old. Or when we're advanced, seasoned. So we have to, take care of our brain now, so that we can have that, you know, in the future.
No, absolutely. And I mean, something that I was thinking of last week, I was feeling like a little bit under the weather. My stomach had been bothering me for a while. And I knew that I had like a funky period of time, like an hour, 45-ish minutes. One of those things where it's like, okay, like in my brain, I'm like, I need to work, but I'm also feeling like a little tired, a little sluggish. Like if I sit down, I feel like I might be like fighting to try to get through it. And I was like, and actually, I'm really proud of myself. I did make a really good choice. Every day where I know, I'm like, is it possible to make like these great choices every single day? No. Sometimes our schedule allows. Sometimes we're going to, I don't like the word lose, but like, we might still pick up our phone, but it's like the idea of like, okay, if I can intersperse some better choices here and there, that's great, right? We're not striving for perfection here. That's not fair. And life is not going to be perfect. And all because the reality is I'm like, well, we're also in the thick of holiday season, so time is not slowing down. We're losing time, really. And it's getting colder, so our ability to do some other activities are now getting a little bit more limited, which, again, I understand is a challenge. So anyways, what I did on, it was like Thursday or Friday, I was in between appointments, and I drove myself to a little park, and I walked for like 30 minutes.
Love it.
And I listened to music. So I had my phone, but I was choosing, I was like, Claire, let's like not be on our phone. Since I was like, okay, I don't feel like I'm going to be very focused if I sit down to work, so choosing like movement as medicine, like, and I wish that was something that I was better at, or able to do. I mean, for instance, like today, like I'm in the office most of the day today, do I have some breaks? Yeah, but I know it's like, I know I'm also guilty of like, okay, it's a short week because it's, the holiday this week. So I'm like, I'm going to want to get as much done as possible. So am I going to have the ability to, fit in an outdoor walk today? Probably not. But knowing that, today, every day is not going to be perfect, but maybe I can make some choices throughout the week that can help balance it.
Balance. It's important.
Literally. I mean, I feel like walks for me are great, but that's also a little bit weather, dependent. And I mean, I know the times when I've done it, even like a 15-minute walk is great. And it's also, it's really easy to say to do that, but sometimes I know, again, as moms, I feel like it feels unfair because 5 minutes of silence, don't tell me how much I can get done in 5 minutes because I can crank things out in 5 minutes. So it's sometimes I'm like, it is hard, admittedly, for me to sometimes peel away and that goes back into the culture and the society we in of just like go, of get stuff done, which is a challenge for parents. For sure.
And then the side of it is that you can get things done. And so then it's like, it becomes this shortened, then truncated, right? So I think it's good, like you said, making choices. At times you can make a choice that is going to serve you. And then that kind of can build upon each other. And also modeling it, right? And helping others, like encouraging, like for me, like connecting with my friends and being like, hey, like, what are you doing to take care of yourself? And I'm like, well, so like holding each other accountable, like for you today, like saying like, how do I do this? Like and your podcast and your audience, right? Like we're all like we're all working, we're all busy,
right,
and we're all juggling. So how do we help each other?
Right.
You know, and give some like very tangible ideas. I love the walk. I love listening to music. Maybe it is calling a friend.
Yeah.
Maybe it is just sitting and being quiet in the car.
Right.
With the radio off, you know, and just finding.
I did that last week too, actually. I dropped I brought my friends' kids with me. They all go to dance class together. And after I picked them up from school, went home, I did all 3 kids' homework, snacks, changed them, got them out the door. By the time I got to dance, I was like, I'm going to sit in my car for 60 minutes in silence. And I did. And it was actually, It's
amazing because I've talked to a lot of moms, like even ones that come to Brain Balance or that are carting kids around.
Yeah.
And when they're in the car, they just want to sit in the car and just have peace.
Yeah.
And that's so okay, right? And
right, because I was still giving, just like you said, my brain a break.
Yes.
I did. I literally closed my eyes.
Yeah.
I did have the music on. It was one of those days where it was like a little bit warmer than today, so I cracked the windows, so it was like natural white noise, you know what I mean? So it was like, I wasn't stimulating my brain, and I wasn't forcing myself to work either. It was an actual break.
So I think, just giving yourself permission to do that, encouraging others to support you in that, like making sure that your support system knows that you need time and space, and then just following through and making that choice.
I know. It is. It is. And, so I think that's the thing with, that we want the take home for adults and parents is that, like, yes, we want to be big advocates of, like, give yourself brain breaks. But I think just like in any self-care like advice, we don't want this to be lofty of, like, it's not going to be perfect every day. Like, our diets aren't perfect every day, and so, but so it's okay. I think if just generally, like you said, trying to make better balance here and there. Like, I mean, I'm getting coffee with 2 of my really good girlfriends on Monday who I haven't seen in a bit. Like, we talk, but you know what I mean? Like, we're going to, like, physically see each other. And I'm looking forward to that. You know what I mean? And so, like, I know in that moment, like, I'm not going to be on my phone, and I'll be able to be a little bit more present, I mean, I know myself, like, I am definitely a dopamine chaser. So, which again, kind of, reinforces the phone addiction because, we're on our phone and, we can be connected or laugh within a second's reach, right? Because it's right at our fingertips. So, this weekend I found myself kind of like, I was like, I need to, like, I feel like I'm just holding my phone, scrolling here and with my family. I need to, like, really practice that separation.
Hard. It is hard, and it's a challenge, especially when, again, it's like how we're connected. Mm-hmm. So but I think it's give yourself grace. Yeah. And just being able to say, again, there's imperfection, and that's okay. Right. And that actually is acceptance, and imperfection is how we grow. Right. So, I think it's all good, and I love that you're taking some, space and time to find what works for you. Yeah. I think everyone needs to do that. It looks different for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, I have friends that love to read, and it's not that, and people are like, you don't like to read. It's like, it's not that I don't like to read. Yeah. I think, like, my industry and, like, what I do is it feels so very fast paced that, like, I want to get back into reading. If anything, it's probably going to be audiobooks. I'm not going to be able to like pick a physical book.
That's okay. That's great.
I'm also not a fast reader, so then that frustrates me. Yeah. But I'm like, I wish I did. And then I thought about, like, well, what if I got a Kindle? But I was like, I don't know. Because I was like, the technology piece I might like.
Yeah, I read on a Kindle. I find that it does help me with the pace. I read faster on a Kindle. Yeah. And it's, like, small, and I just put it in my purse, and I just take it places.
Well, because I like the idea of, like, it feels like I could probably easily take that with me.
Yeah, like more. If you have a break and a time, like, you can just sneak it in. Right. So I think that's a great idea. I know. Put it on your list.
I know, right? So those are some cool ways to think about it for us as adults. And so, let's frame it then too, like, how can we continue some of these habits, not only for ourselves, but for, like, our home, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do you have any thoughts and suggestions on ways that we can kind of keep setting up our home for success for ourselves, but for our family too?
Great. I love that you're thinking about that, right? Because we do spend a lot of time at home, and for our kids, it is like comfort and
Yeah.
safe space. So one, just like speaking of the kids, they should have a workstation that they do their homework at.
Yeah.
And should always be the same and look the same.
Okay.
It's not on the couch. It's not at a different chair every time, because then when they sit, they know that their brain is in the repetition and the routine that this is where I do my work at home.
Got it.
Because
Yeah.
again, if they're comfortable at home, so they'll be like wanting to combine those two things, like be comfortable and do their homework, but then it takes longer and they have more distractions. So a workstation, and even for us to have that workstation somewhere where we know that when we're sitting there, we're attending to whatever the
Right.
task is. So that's one. Two, I do think that there should be a calm down area,
Yeah.
a peaceful space in your house where there is maybe not technology, and maybe technology isn't involved in that
Yeah.
space. So, and with like pictures of the family or like mementos that from like the beach or whatever, mountains or whatever, that
Yeah.
where you feel like you're on vacation,
Yeah.
and you have this like comfort, and to have a place to go for that. Some people do like meditation or sitting quietly in that space, but it doesn't have to be that. You
Yeah.
could sit and read.
Yeah.
You could be just listening to music, but it's like a decompression area. And then I feel like there also should be a space where there's some movement. So maybe it's a yoga mat that's like set up, or maybe your weights. And then you kind of have these areas in your
Yeah.
home. And then, of course, you have your lounging area, you have your kitchen, you
Right,
have where you're
right.
watching TV, whatever that is. And if you can have that, like, space to be dedicated, then there's more of a chance it's going to happen.
Yeah. Say a little bit more about the workstations, because again, I'm sure there's multiple different ways to do it. And well, I shouldn't say there's a right and wrong, but like, I mean, I think like right now we do a lot of it like at the kitchen table, and I think there's good visibility of that. There's like good opportunities for body doubling, just kind of like the
Yes.
presence of us being there and other people around, right? But then, I've also thought like we have like, in a older 90s style home, like a living room that's like not really used. And I was like, I wonder if I should transform that into like a homework area at some point.
Yeah.
The problem is it's like not as central in the home, and there's less visibility, which, can be great for obviously like some older teens and things like that. But, I mean, I'm kind of thinking for me, like, when I was a teenager, again, I'm one of 5, so I went to my bedroom to do homework. Was I productive? No, because I was out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
But my 3 youngest siblings all sat and did homework together at the kitchen table. And but I wanted to get away from them because there was so much noise, so much energy. There's a lot of chaos in my house, a lot of distraction, and they were like 5 and 6 years younger than me, so I was like, I want to get it away.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't very focused in my room. So, and I know the room is a whole different thing, but I felt like what's kind of nice about like the kitchen table is there's sort of just this central like visibility, that aspect of body doubling, even if like someone's just cooking or whatever, you're in. So anyways, I was curious to get your thoughts on placement of the workstation.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One is that you could have like a kit or like a toolbox that is the homework toolbox that comes out when it's time to do homework. Mm-hmm. Kind of like at school, like Grant was telling me yesterday, I was the helper and I was in charge of the toolkits. He's like, there were lots of scissors, and I was like, what's in there? There were lots of scissors and pencils and markers. And I was like, okay, that's amazing. What's that for? And he goes, to do work. And so like it's a little bit of the same thing. Like if you're sitting it's no problem to be with visibility, but like there's a kit, right, that comes out and it has everything you need, so they're not running around trying to find where the eraser is or where the colored pencils are. So the kit comes out, they maybe always have the same seat, and that can be their space, so there's no sibling fighting over the chair. And it's like maybe not always where they're also having their meals, right? So then they can be able, maybe they're having a working snack or a working lunch or whatever, but then their brain is like, okay, I'm going to be attending to my work. Now if it's set up in a different space, let them do it. Wait, like here's my little homework area when I really need peace and quiet. Maybe as Brooke gets a little bit older, she'll need that sort of separation. And when she needs help, she'll come get you.
Okay.
So it's also developing some independence. And self-direction.
Right.
So that would be my two ideas, and let them have ownership over it.
Okay.
So I think that they'll be able to, because homework there'll be more volume, more
I know.
and less time, and with other activities and stuff.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, and Grant doesn't have homework yet, so this is why I haven't like transformed that space, but I kind of keep thinking about it, noodling it. There's ironically where my home podcast studio is kind of like sort of like a loft area on the second floor of our house, and they had it set up stage or the previous owners had it staged as a second office area.
Okay.
So we were like, oh, we could make that a homework area. My first thought was like, that's dangerous because it's kind of sort of like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. It's sort of like tucked away, which is sort of great, and it's not a bedroom, you know what I mean? But I was like, I don't know. So, I mean, obviously it sounds like there's just like a lot of pros and cons.
Yeah, and I think maybe like if they are in a separate space, they're setting a timer and you're going to work for 10 minutes without me helping. Write down your questions or mark the ones you need help with a star so that when I do come in and I can support you, but they need to have the ability to self-direct and to be able to follow through on the task. That's going to train them from when they have to write papers and be, doing lots more homework.
Yeah.
So if you start now with not also just being on top of them, then they'll learn they can't rely on that as much too.
Yeah.
So, marking the ones they need help with, you step away, set a timer, and then when the timer's up, say, okay, I'm coming back for some support. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
If she's like, oh no, I'm all done, then good to go.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And if there is help, then say, I'm going to help you, and then you're going to get back to work and do the corrections or whatever it is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things we could sit here and noodle on, and this is already kind of gets me excited, like thinking about how to keep setting that area up for success. I think on our next podcast, we should talk about, and again, this is a massive topic, which is why I want to ask you about it, but I was like, we're just going to have to save it because there's just not enough time. But I think talking about balancing tech at home in screen time, because we're kind of already like talking about it a little bit with adults, right?
Yeah.
Obviously it's a hot topic for all of us, but I think there are ways that we can, because just like we are constant users of tech and it's not going anywhere.
No.
Right? So I think that'll be a great way for us to frame how we keep supporting ourselves and our kids at home, because I mean our kids are literally using technology for their homework now.
I know.
So it's a whole separate thing.
Yes.
So anyways, well, thank you so much for your time today, Beth. For people that are looking to get started, how can they reach out to ask more questions, get started, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, so the easiest thing is probably find us on socials. So Brain Balance Baltimore on Instagram or Brain Balance of Greater Baltimore on Facebook. Our website, if you look up Brain Balance and then find Baltimore as a location, we are a national group, but the first one in Maryland, or just reach out to me. Brain Balance is, for anybody. There's no diagnosis required. And also, if you just want to talk to me or get some ideas about brain health, I love talking to people and consulting parents. I want to be working with parents more and doing parent groups and parent education and just support.
Right.
So, reach out, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. I know that you're the people that that you're speaking to I know that they appreciate it, and the more we can support each other is really meaningful. So thank you.
I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talk Maryland. If you loved it, leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me at the.columbiamom on Instagram. I'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep supporting local, and keep being the incredible mom, woman, human that you are.